After this incident of taking care of sheep and being a shepherd, only 2 or 3 things are narrated before the prophethood begins. The first of these are the Fijar wars. The Fijar wars of the Quraysh. When the Prophet ﷺ was a teenager, probably around 18, 17, maybe even 15. We don't know for sure exactly because again nobody's recording dates. Between 15 to 18. When the Prophet ﷺ was a teenager, and most likely by the way closer to 15, because he didn't physically fight, he didn't participate. And this shows that he was not of that age that he would carry a sword. And they would usually allow a person to carry a sword at around 15. That's when he became what we call 18. In our days, that's being a man. In those days, they didn't have the luxury to wait till you're 18. 15, 14 is when you become a full adult. So, the Fijar Wars is a series of small battles that broke out between 2 large tribes of Arabia. And again, not to get too much into the Arab tribes of old, but we need to have a little bit of understanding. The tribe of Quraysh belongs to a much larger tribe. It's called a branch, not a tribe, of Kinana. Kinana is not the name of one tribe. Kinana is the name of many large tribes. Of them is Quraysh. And on another large branch of the Arab race was a tribe, or not a tribe, but a branch called Qais Aylan. Qais Aylan. Qais Aylan, it is composed of tribes such as Ghatafan, such as Hawazin. These are tribes that are going to come up in the Seerah, right? Ghatafan, Hawazin, they belong to the larger branch of Qais Aylan. Quraysh and others, they belong to the larger branch of Kinana. To make a long story short, a person from the Kinana, which is one of the larger tribes of Quraysh. So Quraysh belongs to Kinana. A person from Kinana killed somebody from the Hawazin. And when they found out, the Hawazin attacked the Kinanite tribes, and Quraysh is one of them. This is what Jahiliyyah is. You kill one of mine, I'm going to go kill one of yours. So the tribes of Kinana, including the Quraysh, they rushed back into the Haram. What is the Haram? The holy sanctuary of Mecca, right? And the outlying lands. Why did they do this? Because the rule of law, which is still a rule of law in our religion, when you enter the Haram, what happens? وَمَنْ دَخَلَهُ كَانَ آمِنًا. Whoever enters the Haram, you are safe. So they rushed back into the Haram. Hawazin followed them, and because they were so angry, so incensed, they didn't care about the Haram, and they attacked the Kinana. Now, this is interesting here. The initial fault was that of the side of the Quraysh. But the rebuttal was much more severe, because killing one person outside the Haram is a crime. Attacking the sanctity of the Haram is a much bigger crime. Much bigger crime. And therefore, the Quraysh declared all-out war against Hawazin and against the Qais Ajlan. You guys understanding this point here, right? Both sides are at fault. The initial fault was done by the Qurayshi side. Not somebody from Quraysh, but from Kinana, the larger sub-tribe. The initial fault. Then the other tribe attacks Mecca, and they break the Haram sanctity. Now the Quraysh are incensed. You have broken the sanctity of the Haram, we're going to attack you. And so all-out war broke out. This is called the Wars of Fijar. And initially, the opposing side was winning and the Quraysh was losing. Eventually the Quraysh won over, and then a peace treaty was enacted. Fighting was limited. Finally a peace treaty was enacted, and the Quraysh agreed to pay the blood money, and so the fighting stopped. The Prophet ﷺ says in an authentic hadith, when he's much older, he says, I remember participating in the Fijar wars. Why is it called Fijar wars? Fijar means evil. Fujur, fajr, evil. Evil wars. Why? Because both sides committed evil, but especially because the sanctity of the Haram was broken, which is the height of evil. These are evil wars, Fijar wars, because the sanctity of the Haram was broken. So, the Prophet ﷺ said, I remember fighting in the wars of Fijar, and I would collect arrows for my uncles and hand them back to my uncles. Now what does this mean? So arrows are weapons you can use back and forth. When somebody shoots an arrow and it misses the target, in fact, even if it hits the target, you can take it out or you can pick it up, and then you can use it back against the enemies. It's an ammunition that you can use over and over again, correct? So, the Prophet ﷺ's job was to go find those arrows. and to go look for those arrows in the mountains. When he found them, he would go and return them to his uncles, and they would then use them against the other tribe. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I do not regret participating in that war. I participated and I do not regret it. It's nothing wrong that I did. That I helped the Quraysh against their enemies of the Qais Aylan. Also, it is narrated that whenever the Prophet ﷺ would appear with the Quraysh, on that day, the Quraysh would win over. Whenever he would not be at home, the Quraysh would lose ground. And so when Abu Talib saw this, he said, by Allah, you're not going to leave my sight anymore, you're going to stay with us. And eventually they reached a peace treaty, and the fighting stopped after that. In another few years, even a more famous incident occurred, and this is called the Hilf al-Fudul, or the Hilf al-Mutayyabin, the treaty or the pact of Fudul, also called the treaty of Mutayyabin. And what is this about? And at this stage, the Prophet ﷺ is probably in his early 20s. Probably in his early 20s. So a number of years after the Fijar wars. This pact or this treaty occurred in Dhul Qa'dah, one of the sacred months in Mecca. According to one report, the Prophet ﷺ was exactly 20 years old. What happened was, a person from the tribe of Zubayd, and Zubayd is a tribe in Yemen. And so the Yemenites, when you're in Mecca, the people did not consider this tribe to be as elite. They are a low-class tribe. So the people of this tribe are not the status of Hawazin or Thaqif, and they're very far away. So when you're far away, what this means is you don't have people willing to fight for you, right? Now let's say right now, we just talked about a war between Hawazin and Kinana. These two are tribes neighboring one another. If you kill somebody from one tribe, the next tribe is across the border. They're going to come and attack, which is exactly what happened. This guy from Zubayd, if they were to do something to him, where are his allies? Where are his brothers? Where are his tribes? All the way in Yemen. Who's going to come to defend you? And this is the reality of Jahili society. So what happens? This person from the tribe of Zubayd sold an item before Hajj. He's come as a merchant. He's brought his leather, he's brought his good. That's how you get your money. And he sold a number of items to Al-As ibn Wa'il, the father of Amr ibn al-As, the famous Amr ibn al-As. This is his father, Al-As ibn al-Wa'il. And Al-As ibn al-Wa'il, he is a chieftain, he's a politician, he's a career statesman in the Quraysh, and he's a rich businessman. He sold it to him before Hajj. And Al-As said, I'll give you the money after Hajj before you go back to Yemen. Come to me after and I'll give it to you. So he goes, okay, fine. I can wait that long, I don't need it now, I need it back in Yemen. So he performs the Hajj, and then he says, I need my money. Al-As says, come back tomorrow. So he comes back tomorrow. Al-As says, come back tomorrow again. Comes back tomorrow. And then he continues doing this until he realizes that he's not going to get his money back. He's simply stalling him, and he's not giving him his money. And so this person goes to the other sub-tribes. He goes to the Banu Hashim, he goes to the Banu Abdiddar, he goes to the Banu Abd Manaf, all of them in Quraysh. And he goes, I need some help. This guy's not giving me my money back. And everyone makes an excuse. Why? Because Al-As ibn Wa'il is a politician. He is rich. He is a leader. And you don't want to get on the bad side of a leader. Everyone makes an excuse. Oh, I really can't do anything, this and that. And therefore, feeling completely trapped and not having any other outlet, he decided to make this a public issue. What did they do in those days? They would write poems. And they would announce these poems. Poems in those days is like news media. It's like the internet. It's like a blog post, right? It's like Twitter. You're going to just send it immediately. And you're not limited to 160 characters when you write a poem. And so he wrote a poem. He didn't even, in those days you didn't have to write it. It just comes to you naturally. SubhanAllah, it's amazing. I don't know how they did it. It just comes to you naturally, and then you say it out loud, and then this spreads everywhere, that this person has made this poem. And so one day, when everybody is in front of the Kaaba, which is basically everybody would gather around Asr time, all the people of Mecca would now come and they would say this is a social place as well. He now comes and he says out loud his poem that he has compiled. يا آل فهر لمظلوم بضاعته ببطن مكة ناء الدار والنفر. Oh family of Fihr. Fihr is who? Who can tell me? Who's Fihr? Who is Fihr? We mentioned this so many weeks ago. Fihr is Quraysh. Fihr is the name of Quraysh. Fihr is the name of Quraysh. Quraysh is his title. So he says, Ya ala Fihrin, O tribe of Fihr, O Quraysh, لِمَظْلُومٍ بِطَاعَتَهُ, I am a one who has been unjustly treated because of my merchandise. بِبَطْنِ مَكَّةَ, I am in the valley of Makkah. نَاءِ الدَّارِ وَالنَّفَرِ, far away from my home and far away from people to protect me. وَمُحْرِمٌ, I'm still in my ihram. أَشْعَث, my hair is not been combed because he's in ihram. لَمْ يَقْضِ عُمْرَتَهُ, I haven't even finished my umrah. يَا لِلرِّجَالِ, where are my men to help me? وَبَيْنَ الْحِجْرِ وَالْحَجَرِ, between the hijr, the maqam Ibrahim, and the hajar, the stone, you are doing this to me. I am in ihram, and I'm in this state, and I am between the hijr and the hajar. The hijr is that round semicircle, and the hajar is the hajar aswad, and this is being done to me. إِنَّ الْحَرَامَ لِمَنْ تَمَّتْ كَرَامَتُهُ, the true haram belongs to those who are noble. وَلَا حَرَامَ لِثَوْبِ الْغَادِرِ الْفَجْرِ, there is no sanctity to the one who wears a thobe, most likely there was a thobe in there involved as well, who wears a thobe while he is a cheat and a steal and a lowly person. You don't have any karama, you don't have any sanctity simply because you live in Mecca, simply because you're in a holy land. You are a bunch of cheaters and losers. That's what you are. That's basically what he's saying. And I am in this state of ihram, and you are doing this to me just because I'm far away from my house and my land and my people. So the news spread like wildfire. And Az-Zubayr ibn Abdul Muttalib, the Prophet's elder uncle, Az-Zubayr ibn Abdul Muttalib, heard of this. And he said, we have to do something about this. This is not going to go on anymore. And he convened a gathering of all of the senior members of the Quraysh in the house of somebody whose name you should memorize. He comes up in Seerah over and over again. Abdullah ibn Jud'an. Abdullah ibn Jud'an. Abdullah ibn Jud'an was a distant uncle of Aisha. She was a distant uncle of Aisha, and he was considered to be the most noble of the people of Mecca of his time. He didn't live until the da'wah. He died before the da'wah began. But he was considered to be the most legendary in terms of hospitality, in terms of genuine sincerity, and he was known to be the problem solver. And he was the most elderly. So they convened in the house of Abdullah ibn Jud'an, and here is where they agreed to a pact, a treaty. What was the pact and treaty? Treaty that they would side with the oppressor against the oppressed, regardless of what ethnicity or what tribe was the oppressor. They would side, sorry, did I say the wrong? I said the other way around. They would side with the oppressed against the oppressor, obviously. They would side with the oppressed against the oppressor, regardless of which tribe the oppressor belonged to. And they said, even if the one who is shown injustice is from a faraway tribe and the oppressor is from a Quraysh sub-tribe, we will side with the one who has been oppressed, and we will get his full rights from the oppressor. And they all went in front of the Kaaba and they publicly announced this, and they signed their names on a document. Now, there is no document, there is no signature. What do you do in those days? You dip your hands in perfume. They're all illiterate. They don't know how to read and write. There is no pen and paper. How do you sign your name? You go in public, you announce everybody that this is our treaty, and then you dip your hand in perfume and you put that perfume on the Kaaba on the same place. Everybody puts it on the same place. And that is why this is called Hilf al-Mutayyabin. Tayyib means perfume. And so this is the treaty of those who have perfumed themselves. Hilf al-Mutayyabin. It is also called Hilf al-Fudul. Many people try to explain why. The most strongest reason seems to be that when Al-As bin Wa'il heard of this, he became irritated and angry. And he said, why did they have to get involved in a matter that is fuduli, none of their business? Because fuduli means none of their business, right? Fuduli to them, it's none of their business. Why are they getting involved? So this is another interpretation of why it's called Hilf al-Fudul, and then there are other reasons why people say it's Fudul, but this seems to be the strongest, why it's called Hilf al-Fudul. So because he said this is Amrun Fuduli, none of your business what I did. And so they called it the treaty of no business, because it is our business. Hilf al-Fudul. That's another name. So it's called Hilf al-Fudul and Hilf al-Mutayyibin. And the Arabs had never heard of such a pact before. This is the first time. This is basically what we call government, where people come together and they say, no, enough is enough. We're not going to allow injustice. And the Prophet ﷺ said, hadith is in Sahih Bukhari, the Prophet ﷺ said, I witnessed in the house of Abdullah ibn Jud'an a treaty that, were I asked to uphold it even in Islam, I would do so. If I were to ask to follow the treaty even now, I would do so. And I would not be willing to give up my place for a lot of red camels. Meaning, if you were to tell me, if you were to give me a lot of money and I were not present at that treaty, I would not do so. I would not be willing to do so. In that treaty, he's saying, they all agreed that the rights would be given back to the ones who deserved them, and that no oppressor would have the upper hand over the one who was oppressed. Now, from these two incidents, the Hilf al-Fudul and the Fijar wars, what benefits can we derive? And then inshallah with that we will open the floor. From these two incidents, the Hilf al-Fudul and the Fijar wars, what benefits can we derive? Many benefits. First and foremost, the Prophet ﷺ did not regret participating in the wars of Fijar. And the fact that he later says this and boasts about this, somebody can say, but hold on, he wasn't a prophet at the time. This is something he did before prophethood. How can you derive lessons from it? We say, he narrated this later on and he said, I do not regret this. Showing that what he did was correct. And this shows us that it is permissible, and some scholars have derived this, some ulama have derived this, that it is permissible to even fight in wars and battles that are not necessarily religious, because this is a war that has nothing to do with religion. It's a war to defend the haram and the sanctity of the haram. Both sides are pagan. Both sides are idol worshippers. Both sides believe in the same gods. And yet the Prophet ﷺ participated. Now others point out that he didn't quite physically fight. He aided, he helped. What did he do? He gave the arrows to his people. So there's a lot of fiqh that people are debating to what level. But the bottom line is that even in such wars where things are being defended which are not purely religious, the Muslim has some leeway to do something, to get involved. Because the Prophet ﷺ did do something. And in this war, it's not a clear-cut line of good versus evil, because both sides have done some evil. But one side has done more evil than the other. And the Prophet ﷺ was fighting on the side that was closer to the truth. And again, he wasn't quite fighting, but he was participating in some manner. And this is some point to think about in the world that we live in, when many of the battles that are being waged, and we're talking about battles that don't involve Muslim lands, let's say, many of the battles are very murky. Can we help out? Can we support? This is some fiqh that can be discussed from this incident. Likewise, the issue of the Hilf al-Fudul and Mutayyibin, these incidents show that, and this is a very important point for us in America, that the Prophet ﷺ was actively involved with the society of his time, even though the society of his time was not Muslim. And he was proud of that involvement. And the causes that he got involved with are not purely religious causes. So the Hilf al-Fudul involves justice, involves truth, involves helping the oppressed. And later on he is saying, I am proud to have been there, and even now as a prophet and a Muslim, were I called to uphold that treaty, I would proudly do so. And this clearly shows us that getting involved in public causes is a part of being a good Muslim. And this is one of the biggest problems that we have as a minority here in America, is that we think we should only get involved in what we think are purely Islamic causes. We don't get involved with racism, with oppression, with poverty, with child abuse, with sexual abuse. We say, oh, these are just other problems. We only get involved with Palestine and Kashmir and a flood over here and a flood over there and an earthquake over here in Muslim lands. Those are all good causes. I'm not, astaghfirullah, making fun of it. But at the same time, from the seerah, what do we learn? The Prophet ﷺ was an active part of his society, and he is supporting justice in his society. And that justice has nothing to do with Islam or non-Islam, with Muslim or Kafir. And this is one of the biggest faults, in my humble opinion, of us as a minority. That we still don't seem to have a connection with the society around us. Imagine what da'wah we would have if a representative of the Red Cross Society wanting blood, donating blood, is a bearded Muslim with a skull cap, and he comes on TV, we need blood for our cause. Nothing to do with Islam, no da'wah, but that is the best da'wah. Imagine somebody talking against racism, talking against oppression, speaking out for the rights of these migrant workers, right? A muhajjiba sister coming on the television and saying, we need to protect children's rights, we need to do this and that. No, nothing about we need to convert to Islam, we need to give da'wah, no. But her message is her da'wah. And her involvement with society is the best da'wah that she can do, right? This is what our Prophet ﷺ did. Because basically, brothers and sisters, oppression is oppression regardless of who does it and who it's done against. Racism is racism. Child abuse is child abuse. Poverty is poverty. You don't need to be a Muslim to suffer from poverty or to be helped because you're a Muslim. It affects all of us. And, listen to this, when you become involved with the problems of society, people see you as sincere. Then when you come forth and say, I'm a Muslim, your Islam is shown to be a sincere faith. And that's what our Prophet ﷺ did. He was involved with the problems of his society. And he's solving those problems. Then when he becomes a prophet, he is known, he's loved, he's respected, his message now becomes acceptable. And nobody can come and say, who are you to preach to us? Where were you when we needed you? Where were you when society was suffering from a problem? You guys are following this point, right? And we as a Muslim community, the fact of the matter is, we are cut off from the society around us. We don't have active engagements with them. We don't have any type of cause that, subhanAllah, I mean, I need to be concerned with just as much as my neighbor for crime. Because crime affects me and it affects him. I need to be concerned about the murder rates of Memphis. I need to be concerned about all of the issues surrounding me. And when I get involved in those issues, and I become active in them, now when I come forth and I say, well, my religion is Islam, people are going to listen to me. Because I have standing respect in society. And that's exactly what our Prophet ﷺ did. The bottom line here, there are values that are human values. Not necessarily just Islamic values. Justice, security, fighting against oppression. And the Muslim needs to be at the forefront in all of these issues. And because the truth is linked together. When you support justice and you have the proper theology, it will come forth as a total package. Unfortunately for us, da'wah is only talk. Preaching through theology. Preaching through talking to others. Debating with Christians and Jews about, no, this is one minuscule aspect of da'wah. And it is not the bulk of da'wah. Our Prophet ﷺ showed us what we need to do.